Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Hump Day edition of Palmetto Sports Daily. Rick Henry here in Columbia, Carmine Jamay in Greenville, Kevin Bilodeau in Charleston, and Tegan Brown holding it down in Myrtle Beach. We're going to kick off with college football. The Gamecocks, they're standing at 2-2. They host Kentucky on Saturday night, 7:45 kickoff time. And if USC, if they don't tackle any better than what they did last weekend at Missouri, it's going to be another long night for the Gamecocks. They gave up almost 300 yards rushing to the Tigers, 138 of them by Ahmad Hardy, and the tackling was so poor. I mean, that guy was picking up yardage, running backwards, sideways, and the Gamecocks were guilty of just not wrapping up. I mean, fundamental defense, wrap up, get your guy to the ground. Here's Shane Beamer talking about that awful tackling performance against Mizzou.
It's a little bit of everything. Don't think it's an effort issue at all. I don't think anybody could watch our game against Missouri the other night and question how hard our guys played. I mean, we were ready to play and how much our guys wanted it. I don't think anybody could question that, but I think there were too many examples the other night of guys just assuming that somebody was on the ground and didn't finish the play like they needed to play. It wasn't because of a lack of want to or a lack of effort. Just got to get off blocks, and you can't assume that somebody's got it. We got to do a better job of all 11 being around the ball, but it's something that we emphasize all the time.
And the Gamecocks knew what they were up to because Shane Beamer, he warned everyone at his press conference leading into the Missouri game that Ahmad Hardy was one of the toughest guys to bring down in college football and probably leading the nation and broken tackles. According to Pro Football Focus, there were 16 broken tackles, but I think it was much more because it looked like Hardy had half of those on one play. So, Tegan, I'm going to ask you, if the Gamecocks don't improve their tackling, what does the rest of the season look like for them?
I mean, obviously not good. We talked yesterday about their upcoming SEC opponents and the challenges that they're going to present. Kentucky, the only one out of their next six that isn't currently ranked. So, South Carolina really has to figure out this issue that, quite honestly, I didn't really see them having at the beginning of the season. I know, Rick, in one of your interviews, you had asked him, the position he was most kind of concerned about. And he talked about how the younger guys who are going to, be focusing on tackling are obviously younger and not as experienced as the guys that they had last year. But I don't think he was really too worried about this at the beginning of the season. But clearly, as we've seen with both Clemson and South Carolina, there are a lot of concerns that have risen that we really didn't think would be here in the preseason, Kevin.
Yeah, and watching that Missouri game, I can remember at least 4 or 5 instances where, and Rick, you talked about guys not wrapping up. There was times guys were just running in shoulder first and just trying to knock someone over, and the Missouri runners just bouncing right off of that and going right into the end zone for touchdowns. So if they don't improve that, they're not winning another game outside of maybe Coastal Carolina the rest of this season. If they do improve that, they're still maybe going to win 2 or 3 games the rest of this season. So I don't know how big of an issue or an improvement the tackling is going to provide with the schedule that we've got coming in the next 6 weeks, but it's something they have to do just to be a competent football team going forward, Carmine.
Yeah, guys, it kind of reminds me of when I used to play Madden a little bit, and you always try to hit stick the ball carrier. You're just trying to bulldoze them to jar the ball loose and have a big hit and set the crowd off. But with the physical running backs like Hardy, like you said, Rick, on that touchdown run, I believe he had at one point to take the lead over the Gamecocks. I mean, you're just trying to, like Kevin said, lower the shoulder. That's not going to work against a big, burly running back who can run through those hits. Wrapping up is obviously, something they talk about in practice, but it's much different when you're in an SEC environment like that and trying to make the plays split second. So you can understand that there's things to work on there. And losing so many defensive stars to the draft, something I wish they had Nick Eman-Wari back there to lay some of the wood and some hits and wrap up as a short tackler there. But Rick, how about the developments for next season and the next 4 seasons coming up for the Gamecocks? Just announced that they're consistent 4 SEC opponents as part of the new 9-game conference schedule for the SEC, and we know the ACC is moving to the same. But Florida, Kentucky, and Georgia, the three that the Gamecocks will play in each of the next 4 seasons. What do you think of that? Because honestly, like Tegan mentioned, with the next 5 games after Kentucky being against ranked SEC opponents, it seems like their matchups could have been a lot worse, and they got out somewhat on the easy side of it. Or what do you make of it?
Well, I think it's good and bad news for South Carolina because when the Gamecocks first played their inaugural SEC season in 1992, well, Georgia and Florida were on that schedule, along with the SEC Eastern Division opponents. Of course, there are no divisions now. And last year was the first year since joining the Southeastern Conference that they didn't play Georgia and Florida. Okay, it's good news because Gamecock fans, they consider Georgia, a rival because it's the closest SEC opponent. And Florida, they've had some good battles with Florida. Now, while Georgia and Florida lead their series with the Gamecocks, some of the Gamecocks' most memorable games have taken place against the Bulldogs and Gators. If you go back to 2000, the year the Gamecocks snapped their 21-game winning streak, well, their second win in that season was against Georgia, and like they did when they snapped the losing streak, the fans tore down the goalposts. And with Florida, you always think about the 2010 game when the Gamecocks clinched the SEC Eastern Division title with a win over Steve Spurrier's former team, the Gators. So good from that, outlook at it. But then when you think that, Georgia is going to add even more difficulty to the schedule, and you got to believe that Florida is going to get back on track at some point. So, hey, it's the SEC. You'll always have a tough schedule.
Well, I don't know why you have to assume that Florida is going to get back on track at some point. I mean, Florida has been down for a while now, pretty much ever since Urban Meyer left. So I think they got kind of a break in that part of it. And I do like the Spurrier aspect of it, where it's 2 of his former teams that are going to face off every year. Georgia's one that has to be on that schedule. I think that was a good move. As for Kentucky, I don't care. I'm a little disappointed they're not going to face Missouri every year and have that Battle of Columbia, which has just become a historic rivalry in SEC. It's right up there with Auburn and Alabama. So I'm disappointed we're not going to have that every year, but Kentucky is fine. Whatever. I don't care. Tegan?
Listen, I don't know if I would put Missouri and South Carolina on the same level as Auburn, Alabama, but, I don't really care about them playing Kentucky either. Out of these opponents, I mean, there was really, besides Georgia, none of these really stood out to me as like, that's a really exciting game for South Carolina that I'll look forward to every year. Maybe this makes the road ahead for them easier these next few years in terms of just the difficulty of the schedule, especially in comparison to what we're looking ahead to right now this season. But yeah, Kevin, I don't know if it's quite on the same level, but it would be cool to see that Battle of the Columbias, Carmine.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with it being just slightly a notch below for the Mayor's Cup. Although I think that would have been cool. It would have been cool to maintain that rivalry. But I think if you're the Gamecocks, Tegan, kind of to your point, I'm looking for the least excitement possible. I'm not really worried about, I know as sports fans we want exciting matchups and, big opponents and stuff like that. But if I can trade Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, and instead have Florida and Kentucky, I'm going to take that, all day long because I just want some wins if I'm the Gamecocks. But coming up, a team also looking for some wins, the Clemson Tigers, trying to get back on track. We'll hear from their offensive coordinator about what they can do to do that right after this. Welcome into Palmetto Sports Daily. We talked about some of the Gamecock struggles on defense and tackling. Now we're going to talk about some of Clemson football struggles on offense and just the inconsistency, guys, because I think we mentioned yesterday that this is the first time since 2012 that Clemson has fallen behind by double digits in 3 straight games. And a lot of that having to do with the slow offense coming out of the gate. We saw that against Tegan's team, Syracuse, a proud alumna of the Orange School
Very
for
proud.
Journalism. I don't think that's exactly what it's called, but I know proud graduate.
Newhouse,
and
tomato,
so Clemson,
tomato.
Newhouse, I'm sorry. I just came from the meager University of Scranton. But at Clemson, though, they're talking about in the School of Hard Knocks as well. But Clemson, yes, they're talking about getting on track offensively, getting more rhythm, which it looked like they somewhat did, as the game got started against Syracuse. And I think it's only the third time in Clemson history they gained 500 yards on offense and still lost the game. Here's offensive coordinator Garrett Riley talking about if Cade Klubnik's missed throws on some easy routine plays are fixable, because we saw that in all these games, a Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback just missing some throws that you would think would be somewhat routine to make, and also missing open players while scanning the field. Here's what Garrett Riley said about this being fixable for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think so. I think you just got to keep pointing it out and working that and trusting and showing him the times where he has done it, because there has been times where he has stood in there, this year and has made some good plays within the pocket. But you just got to continue to have trust and up front and where your eyes need to be, and just really basic routine stuff and what we require at the quarterback position. So, again, I think a lot of times maybe some bad things or some inopportune stuff happens in the game, and you just kind of let that linger too much, and that's just kind of what I've seen, at times with him and just our offense in general is we got to move on quicker. Like, we really got to have that short-term memory.
Yeah, we've had some plays in Clemson's season that it looks like they're finally gaining momentum as far as a comeback, and then you just see like the pick six against Troy that was, close to their own goal line, or the Adam Randall fumble in the second half against Syracuse, where it looks like, okay, Clemson's only down, I think it was 9 at the time. They're trying to drive to cut it to be a one-score game. All of a sudden, Adam Randall fumbles. You turn around, Syracuse touchdown, and that's really that. So, Tegan, because we were talking about the esteemed Newhouse School of Journalism, I'll toss it to you. How much blame for this start to the season would you put on Cade Klubnik, like we heard Garrett Riley addressing some of those concerns, versus, in this last game, the defense, or anything else that you think deserves to be pointed out?
Yeah, I mean, Cade Klubnik obviously is not looking like the Heisman hopeful that we had talked about before the season. So, of course, a little bit of the blame goes on him just in terms of not getting their offense going. He's been forced to run a whole bunch of times. But, yeah, that last game against Syracuse, the defense, I think it was Kevin that said this the other day, they looked like Swiss cheese. Syracuse poked so many holes in them. So while you can put a little bit of the blame on Klubnik and just kind of his lack of consistency and his lack of skill that we've seen these past couple seasons from him, I think it's a whole team effort. I mean, they just got bullied by Syracuse, especially in that first half.
Yeah, you hear coaches talk about we have to play complementary football. Well, what that means is like all three phases doing their share, offense, defense, and special teams. And, of course, the quarterbacks, they're always going to get the most blame. But when you look at Cade Klubnik and all the preseason hype, being a Heisman Trophy contender, and when he's had a chance, especially late in games, to make those plays, to keep drives alive, to take your team to victory, he's come up a little short in the biggest moments. And we just heard the offensive coordinator, Coach Riley, talk about he has to flush those bad plays out and just, boom, have that mindset no matter what happens. Hey, I'm that guy. I've got to be the leader for my team and lead them to victory, whatever it takes. Tegan?
Yeah, I mean, I'll point out something that I talked a little bit about the other day. We talked about the whole faking injuries from Syracuse, and obviously they got that $25,000 fine, the very first school in the ACC to get that. And Cade Klubnik had talked about that after the game. He used his air quotes when talking about their injuries. But at the same time, that's what he was putting a lot of the blame on as he was talking after that loss. You have to take accountability. You have to take accountability for what you did or what you didn't do. So, I mean, I don't really think we've seen Clemson kind of do that lately, which is also, it's got to be part of that. We're moving on quickly, but also you have to realize what you did, Kevin.
So here's the thing. How much longer do we play Klubnik if you're Clemson? I mean, Dabo Swinney said earlier this week that their chances to win a national championship are pretty much out the window at this point with a 1-3 start. Klubnik's a senior. He's almost certainly gone after this year. I'm assuming there's not going to be any more eligibility for him that he's going to find. So why keep playing him at this point? Why not get the next guy ready and maybe build some momentum up for next year, Carmine?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was listening to that same press conference with offensive coordinator Garrett Riley, and he was asked point blank period, if Christopher Vezina, the backup quarterback to Cade Klubnik, if putting him in is a decision between Dabo Swinney and Garrett Riley, if it's Garrett's call, if it's Dabo's call only. And he said pretty much that would be a discussion that they'd have, but they haven't gotten there yet. And I think becoming bowl eligible is the main goal at this point. But you're right, at some point, getting him mixed in could be coming down the pipe. But we're talking about a new coach getting mixed in for Wofford men's basketball and the strange situation for the Terriers right after this. Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily, and guys, it's been a tumultuous time for the Terriers, amid which they just introduced a new men's basketball head coach, Kevin Giltner, who had some history actually in Kevin's territory playing against the Citadel when he was a player at Wofford. Kevin supplied us with some great video, which we'll see from Giltner's playing days. He had quite the sweet stroke. But it's just a strange situation. Just 6 months ago, I was in Lexington, Kentucky, covering this team's first trip to the NCAA tournament in 6 years. Everything was on the up and up. But 2 weeks ago, it turned upside down when the Wofford Terriers fired head coach Dwight Perry and lead assistant Tyser Anderson. No official reason why, after they helped lead the Terriers to their first SoCon championship since 2019. Then last week, the NCAA deemed 6 Wofford players ineligible because of reportedly continuing to use their meal plan benefits when they weren't supposed to because they had moved off campus. The NCAA then reinstating those players, so they're all good to play. Now with the new head coach you see right there, just introduced, Kevin Giltner, who played and assistant coached at Wofford himself. Wofford Athletics Director Scott Cole was asked about the connection between the players' violations and the former coaches being fired, and here's what he said.
I can't talk about, the process. Sure. Or personnel decisions that wouldn't be appropriate. We stand by our statement, and we just want to move the program forward, and Kevin's the right guy to do it.
I think the biggest thing we got to do is start building real relationships. That's my whole goal is when I get here. It's not X's and O's. Now that's super important, and the basketball absolutely is important. But I got to start to get on their level. They got to get on my level. We got to start building real relationships. And that's already started happening. It's raw feelings of real love for this place, the people, the experience I've had, and seeing just people coming here and seeing all these people support me. It means a lot to me. So I knew that would happen. I'm glad I held it together as good as I did. I thought it could be worse.
And Giltner talking about the emotions that he was feeling there, getting choked up during his acceptance speech at the introductory press conference because with his wife being from here in the upstate in Spartanburg, and then 10 years with the Terriers between being a player and a coach. Unfortunately, Kevin, the big storyline that's so cool is that Giltner went on to assistant coach at Virginia Tech with the legendary Wofford head coach Mike Young. They both moved to Virginia Tech, and Giltner said that Young didn't hesitate at all when this job came open. So now Young's former assistant is taking Young's former job back here at Wofford. And so now they're both head coaches. So it's a really cool story. But unfortunately, a lot of that is covered up under the huge storyline of the turmoil that the Terriers are in, and still no official reason given for parting ways with Dwight Perry, who just 6 months ago led them to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, this whole thing stinks, is the bottom line. There's no reason to fire a coach that just led you to the NCAA tournament, which, as I've said before, is pretty much the height of things that Wofford can expect as a SoCon team, and you don't give a reason. Like, there has to be a reason, and if it's because the kids were suspended because of using their meal plan off campus, then say that. And if the kids are reinstated, then there's no reason the coach shouldn't be reinstated at the same time. So there's something else behind this. Nobody's going to say it. I don't expect anyone from the school to come back and say anything about it, but it puts a stink on the whole situation. And it's not Giltner's fault, because I'm sure he's a very good coach, and I'm sure he'll do some good things at Wofford. But this whole thing is under a cloud right now, and until someone comes out and says this is why we fired Coach Perry, it's going to stay that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Carmine, have you had a chance to talk to any of the Wofford players, or what are they posting on social media? I'd like to hear their reaction to both Coach Perry being fired and then the hiring of a new coach. It's just a weird situation.
Yeah, it really is. And unfortunately, like Kevin said, the Wofford Sports Information Director won't say anything. They just keep saying it's a personnel matter, so we're not going to comment. We did see a statement from Dwight Perry on Twitter basically saying that his time has come to an end. He didn't say anything about a reason. I'm going to reach out to Dwight Perry actually on Twitter and see. I doubt he will say anything, because I'm sure he's looking for his next head coaching job, and maybe that won't be advantageous for him. But we'll keep digging into this and keep updating you here on Palmetto Sports Daily. We'll be right back to close out the show right after this.
Wrapping up Palmetto Sports Daily here on this Wednesday. But before we go, we were just talking about some basketball. I had the chance to go to the first official practice for Coastal Carolina men's basketball this season. Justin Gray heading into his second year with the Chants. They went 10-22 last year. It was a one-game improvement from the year before when they won only 9 games. So they're looking to build on that this year, of course. They've got almost an entirely new roster, just a couple of familiar faces, including Tristan Thompson, a Wilson High School graduate from here in our market. We'll talk more about some basketball tomorrow, including South Carolina women's hoops preparing after losing to UConn last year in the national championship. We'll see you all tomorrow.